Hello and welcome. This is Gary Scarano, and I welcome you to our weekly podcast on Dr. Khanna's seeking nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court, Khanna for the Supreme Court, and we are reviewing the Bill of Rights. That's right, the Bill of Rights. And today we're going to go over 1C, which is Part 1C, which is the freedom of religion. I want to go through the bill. Dr. Khanna, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm glad that we are talking about the continuation of the First Amendment, and we've broken down in many parts so that the audience can understand the First Amendment is so important to give the rights of the US citizens. So today, one of the main point we'll be discussing is freedom of religion, which talks in the First Amendment about the right to assemble. What does this right to assemble means in the First Amendment? It really talks about that we are allowed, or the citizens of the United States are allowed to gather for peaceful and lawful purposes. Implicit within this right is the right to association and belief. So mark this word, Gary, called belief. Doesn't matter what you believe, but you have the right to exercise your belief. That means Congress shall have no law, they cannot make no law to prohibit practicing your belief. And this is what it's called religion. You believe in something, that's called religion. So establishment of religion is not restricted by the government in any shape or form. Also, there's a big confusion when it talks about this, that, well, does First Amendment talk about the separation of church and state? What is your take, Gary, on that?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Dr. Khanna. And there is a lot of confusion about this specific point because when you go on Google or you talk to people, they say it is enshrined in the First Amendment that there is separation of church and state. And quite frankly, that's a bold-faced lie. It is not enshrined. What's enshrined in the First Amendment is simply that the government shall not form a religion restricting the free exercises of other religions, like it is in England. They have a state religion, they control it, it reports to the king is over the religion. That's why people came to America, for American freedom. So when people tell you separation of church and state, separation of church and state, it doesn't exist in the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, any founding document. It was only a personal letter by Jefferson. So it's just a simple point. They wanted to separate the control of the government from controlling the religion. But as we know, 12 of the 13 colonies, state constitutions had Jesus Christ or God's name in it. They wanted, and we could see, if you see the motto of America is "In God We Trust," the desire for religion to influence the government, because if you have good people influencing government, then you'll have them work on doing good things. And I just want to point out one thing which is really interesting, a little bit to everybody. Just you'll get a kick out of this. At least I did. There was some argument about when they were writing this amendment, should they say the right of people to peaceably assemble and to petition, and should they put a comma there or not? And they decided specifically, yes, we need to put a comma there because it's two separate rights. The right to peaceably assemble, which includes two implicit rights. Number one, for religious purposes, people have the right in America to meet for religious purposes. And number two, they have a right to meet to discuss issues that they may want to redress or correct the government for, which we're going to discuss it next time. So the right to assembly, Dr. Khanna, is the right for peaceful religious assembly and political assembly. Your thoughts?
That's right. Actually, it does not say specifically about religious assembly. It is an assembly that you believe on.
Yes.
Okay. So, and you brought up a point about the good people. Well, we all know that good people comes when they are godly. So this godliness is embedded in this amendment. It's not about separation of church and state. It's not about, having this shrine. The whole thing is shrine that, okay, we should not be this. Well, this is exactly what this misinterpretation is done. Again, this is exactly what the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, starts. This is exactly what it starts about, the First Amendment talking about freedom of press. So where is the entity that controls the right interpretation to be available to the US citizen? We don't have that. Because of the freedom of speech, you can post anything in the Google, you can post anything in the internet, in social media, because it's freedom of speech. But there is a word attached to the freedom of speech. As long as it does not disrupt, as long as it does not damage the human being, the citizens of United States, you can do it. So what you just said about the separation of church and state, what you found in Google and other places people talk about this word shrine, it is shrine in between it. These are all disturbing the people of today. So this is what the Supreme Court should be doing. Supreme Court should be educating the right interpretation of the Constitution. You just cannot go and flag states and people and US citizens that, oh, you are doing unconstitutional. Well, what is constitutional? We don't have a clear language what is Constitution. The First Amendment is interpreted in 10 different ways. You see 10 different ways in Google, you see in 10 different ways in social media. Why? Why do we have that much confusion? Because Supreme Court is not controlling the right interpretation. Every other interpretation available on the internet should be taken down. Only the right interpretation should be there. That's exactly why I want to come to make sure that we do things rightly, righteously. It's not about why people need to believe. The belief is about godliness. The founding fathers, they all were godly people. They understood when they wrote the First Amendment. So now are we challenging those people? Oh, the founding fathers, they did not go to Princeton University or Harvard University. That's why they don't know how to write the First Amendment. Are we challenging them? This is exactly what are we facing today. And I'm glad that, Gary, you brought it up about this separation of church and state, how it is misinterpreted today. That's the reason why United States is different than any other country. Like you said, in England, they have one government religion. They monitor it. They cast on that. We don't have that. But that does not mean we cannot promote godliness. Godliness means righteous moral characters. That means you got to be compassionate. You got to be nice, love to your neighbor. Which religion does not talk about love? Which religion does not talk about humility and compassionate? It's a human character. No religion talks about war. That if you don't like your neighbor, go and kill them. That's not it is. So this particular section 1C, what we are talking today is very important, but mainly what we need to do, the audience should understand that getting the right interpretation is important. But in our country, who is controlling the right interpretation? The US Supreme Court should be controlling the right interpretation of our Constitution. Not the White House, not the Congress, not the Senate. It has to be controlled by the US Supreme Court. So what is your take about the government? Do you think the government can really interfere with the practice of religion?
Well, that's an excellent question, Dr. Khanna. And, if they have the power, they can. Absolutely. Should they? No. Just because something is enshrined in writing, the freedom of religion, there's a very famous quote. It says, freedom is not free unless we fight for it. We continually fight for the right to be freedom. If we are lazy, or we are dull, or we're busy in our lives, we know from history that evil and people will take over. So it's important for Christians to influence the government. It's important for righteous people to influence the government and call them out and have a redress. We're going to be talking about redress next time. But I think it's important that we all cover these, that the American people understand the true meaning of the Bill of Rights, Dr. Khan.
Yeah, well, thank you very much again. I think we don't need to confuse the audience too much. We spoke about the freedom of religion. Basically, the Constitution talks about the belief. The Constitution talks about the exercise of your belief. So Congress shall have no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abriding the freedom of speech or of the press. So today's topic was the freedom to assemble and protest against your belief is important for the United States citizens to understand that you have the right to do that. But as long as it is not disturbing other people, as long as it's not hurting other people, you can definitely exercise your rights. Nobody can stop you in that.
Thank you, Dr. Khanna. Today we talked about the freedom to assemble. Next week, we're going to talk about the freedom to redress or correct a wrong in the government. Please join us at Khanna for USSupremeCourt.com. We post these videos, these podcasts every week, and it's also on YouTube there. We'll have a link for it. And I just want to say thank you all and good day, Dr. Khanna.